Hi there, Team 3. This is Sarah. Thank you so much for your gorgeous Prezi and for your lovely presentation. It was a really great trade-off of your voices and a good reminder of some of the things from the chapter that I found both enlightening and confusing. So thank you for illuminating what you did. I have a number of points I wanted to mention and some questions to ask. Regarding your question about whether we use research in our work, given that my work has mostly been in NGOs, I have found that I use research a lot for both the writing of white papers, which tend to be very focused on recommendations for how the organization could improve, and also ideas for things like outreach and fundraising. However, I'm really excited to hear more from the class, and especially from those who work in schools, about how often they've used research, and particularly research that has not just been given to them or mandated for use. I would also love some clarity from either the group or others in the class about the distinction between use and utilization. It's something I was a little unsure about when I read, and still not totally sure I see the distinction apart from semantics, what the difference actually is, but it seems very important to their points. I'd also be curious to hear some clarity specifically from the team when they were describing mode 2 of dissemination, where they said it treats knowledge as a repository of knowledge. I'm curious to know what you mean by that. And then I also question the notion that was presented in the chapter and then represented by you guys, that research is done almost exclusively at universities and not out in the real world, but it seems like from a lot of what we've been reading, much of education research is not only performed in the field, in actual schools, but also these days, with the increase in action research, with an increased emphasis on actually including practitioners in the process, not just in sharing the results. So I'm curious what you all think about that, because it seems to go against the notion that it's done in the ivory tower with no emphasis on the real world. And then that leads me to I guess my last point, actually two more things. When you say that organizations that shift to become learning organizations will find greater use for research, I find myself wondering whether or not the onus should be on schools to change and become those learning organizations, as you put it, or whether the focus should be on academic culture needing to change. Which brings me to my last point, which is that I think that when we talk about there being this esoteric way of speaking that is almost popular for academics, that lends to greater prestige, I can definitely speak to that from work in higher ed and a lot of talk with people who work in higher ed, particularly adjuncts. And adjuncts as compared to tenure track professors are becoming increasingly common. The pressure is very heavy on them to publish if they ever hope to get a tenure track job, and you really can't make a living as an adjunct. That's an entirely separate issue. But I think that there really is a pressure from within academic culture to forget, as you said, isn't that the whole point of research in the first place? There's a pressure to forget that, yes, indeed, that is the point of research, but when they are in survival mode themselves, trying to make sure they can earn a living, I think a lot of times those researchers do forget what the point of the research was, apart from making sure that they increase their publishing list and therefore their chances of getting tenure one day. So it's an interesting problem. It seems to have many different facets. I'm really curious to hear what other people say, and I'll be responding to them as well. Thank you.